Hello, friend. With the full moon in Capricorn behind us, get ready to humble instead of rumble. The story you were born to live is going to begin this week. And for some, there'll be some emotional hurdles. But by the end, what you feel is what will come. Greetings and blessings to you, my friends, galactic family, and earthly neighbors. Welcome to Namaste Today. I'm your host, Christopher Wotecki, the Sensei to Serious Joy, here to be at your cosmic service, to be your cosmic comedian, and help you with your ascension. For any individual who wants to, I'm here for you. Step 19 is my final year right now. I'm in my 19th year doing this, believe it or not. And 19 final in the sense of next year, step 20 is the mastery level. If you follow the step system, we'll talk about that later. And that means that things are going to change for me, which means I know things are going to change for you. So let's take a look at our top astrology headlines this week. First of all, you got a 7-day warning. You have 7 days to change how you feel about your future. That means you have to change the way you feel about yourself. Now, that was supposed to be what this full moon is. We'll talk about what this full moon is in the last 24 hours. I'll help you get out of your locked situation, and we'll talk about options you have. But it's now time to change, and you feel it. Saturn stations retrograde this week on Sunday, early morning. So early morning on Sunday, like just after midnight, I think, on the East Coast. Which means it's now entirely up to you to love yourself. You have to take it as your responsibility. You have to know to do it. Saturn will actually not grade you until later when it's direct. And by then, it may be too late. So it's time to take that seriously. And next week, at the end of this week, Mercury will station retrograde in just 7 days also. That's part of the 7-day warning. Your mind, here's the question. How often is your mind thinking about your heart? That's a reprogramming. You might want to try before the retrograde to find out what that means for you. But you can start right now. Tell me what your heart thinks with this next thing. That said, we've got a lot to talk about this week, but I can't dive into all of it. Let's first take a look at the week's moods and zodiac weather. When we come back, we'll get started. Today's zodiac weather is from Saturday, July 12th to Friday, July 18th, 2025. Sponsored by All the Woo. Hosts Michael and Suzanne celebrate the profound topics of the universe while emphasizing the joys of friendship and a carefully selected wine choice on their weekly All the Woo podcast. First, taking a look at the weekend forecast. Over the weekend, we move into the master degrees of Cancer. Expect high tides and some insecurities. Let's drill down. On Saturday, it's sunny and vibing. Step 20 means that the moon rules the day, so it's a second Grandmaster day for I Feel Cancer. The moon itself is in Aquarius, allowing you to detach a bit. The root intention affirmation is I feel potential, and your goal is defining the beat. On Sunday, it's sunny and pausing. Step 21 is when it starts to get fun. That means that Jupiter is ruling the day. Expect to learn something about your feelings and what it is you truly want for the future. The tone of the day actually starts off just after midnight, where at 12:07 a.m. Saturn will retrograde at step 1 Aries. Saturn retrograde takes the pressure off. You may wake up feeling rather easy or free to be you. The root intention affirmation is I feel the melody. The goal of the day is using the pause to follow my heart's voice. The moon will shift from Aquarius to Pisces, which means at the end of the day, you might be having questions of inner faith. Taking a sneak peek at the upcoming week, over the 5-day week, we move from step 22 Cancer to step 26. That's literally from chaos to devotion. Kicking it off on Monday, it's partly cloudy and expecting on this day. Step 22 means that Uranus rules the day, feelings are clashing upon feelings, and the moon is in Pisces, so those may be old karmic feelings about yourself or others. The root affirmation is, I feel possibilities. And the strategy is to be mindful of my heart's desires, feeling out the future, and what I wish for. Now, keeping it on the feelings part of things with the moon in Pisces, you'll likely feel your way to a new way of feeling altogether. You'll know it when the sun comes out. Cloudy and star searching on Tuesday. Step 23 means a mastermind Mercury rules the day. The moon continues in Pisces, where you will now process karma about your daily life. With Mercury ruling the day, the root intention affirmation is, I feel I know. The strategy, feeling between the limits to affirm the future I do know. On Wednesday, it's sunny and dynamic. Step 24 indicates that Venus rules the day. Therefore, it's a creative resting and receiving day, time to open up and accept some of the bounty of your work. The moon begins in spiritual Pisces, but then sharpens up in Aries, meaning you'll feel very surreal in the morning, but motivated and perhaps impatient as the day plays on. The root intention affirmation is, I feel playful. And the strategy is creating how a cozy future feels. On Thursday, it's sunny and self-loving. Step 25 means that Neptune now rules the day. Expect higher spiritual truths and intuition to play. The moon continues in Aries, which means you'll be motivated for the day. The root intention affirmation, I feel divinely. And the strategy, opening my heart in a mindful way. And then on Friday it's sunny and we said that right. That's because Saturn rules the day today. Step 26 opens your heart to what you can devote to, and devotion is the key. The moon begins in Aries, but by the end of the day is in Taurus, so you're feeling your value for what you've done. The root intention affirmation is I feel devoted, and the strategy is I commit to feeling full of depth and value. But here's the twist. Early in the morning, before you woke up, Mercury retrograded at 15 Leo. So although you are devoted to a feeling of emotional security, your heart now questions what it really wants for the next 3 weeks.
I'm Suzanne.
I'm Michael.
Join us on our podcast as we talk all things woo.
Grab a drink and subscribe to
All the Woo, A to Z.
Available everywhere.
And today we'd like to thank our sponsor, which is ironically ourselves. And we're proud to sponsor ourselves now with the announcement of my first legacy course. By legacy, I mean this is laying the brick, this is it. Putting the foot down. Working on a book also at the same time. It's Intro to Step Astrology. And Step Astrology you may not know about. You don't have to know about it. It's interesting. It's an extension of astrology in the sense that astrology is inspiring it and astrology is the engine behind it. But you actually don't have to know astrology to be able to make it work for you. It is the secret to consciousness and how we materialize things from beginning to end with the focus of our own consciousness. You could say this is the beginning of using the force. It's the beginning of really testing into your magic. And the shift is real, man. You'll have to see for yourself. You can take this personal edition. Now, I have 2 editions of coming out of the course, and I think we priced it very reasonably for the public. I mean, this is me wanting to, our whole team, give you the tools to be successful in this next era. What you'll basically do is you'll learn in this class how to discover your frequency, first of all, then how to monitor your frequency, then how to intentionally push your frequency to where you want to go. What you be is what comes, and you have to try to see how crazy it is. Now, that said, there's 2 editions. There's one for personal and there's one for professional. And these will be marked based on whether you're working on yourself or you want to work on maximizing your career. Either way, it's a great component and it's divine intelligence in your hands. If you want to know more, then visit seriousjoy.academy. Seriousjoy.academy. Thank you for your time. All right, friends. Well, we're in a magical moment. I'm not shifting here. We happen to be, honestly, upon a change of the eons of life. We are ready to move on to the next eon. I do mean eon. Not Elon, although he's a Cancer. It's kind of interesting we're talking about him now. But what we're doing is we're learning now how to integrate with society's consciousness and, most importantly, the Earth's consciousness. We are plugged in one another, to each other. And I found out and realized a couple of days ago, literally, had the epiphany. It's like, oh my goodness, we use emotion for communication. Emotions are our wireless network. It's how we're all wired to each other. Now, our emotions have been shit, and we have been hurt and full of pain. So we haven't come to realize this, that this is actually how, someone finds us staring at them across the way. They felt it. And this awareness of how you feel and the training of how you feel, I have to say, shout out to George Lucas. This is what the force is, in my opinion. The way you change your vibration is through how you feel. It's an emotional thing. It's a performance. It takes tact. It takes understanding you. And this is the moment we're waking up to, is that we remote control reality through our feelings and what we attract. So, ironically, we're telling you this, realizing it right when we're about to launch the next major feeling. In the next 7 days, we say, please hold your emotional tone. That's what you're learning. That overall, to get your life to go in a certain direction, you have to basically commit to a feeling, which turns into a frequency, and a vibration, which turns into the law of attraction. That it is the feeling and the frequency and the knowing and the feeling. We all know it's like songs, for instance. Songs have a certain rhythm and certain pattern to them, and those are signature. You can think of them all the time in your life. They sort of store where memories are. They remind you of times when you listen to that song. All that conscious around one frequency, and our ability to identify the frequency, and we do it through our feelings. So this week, what we're doing is we're looking into the future, and we're going to ask ourselves, what feeling am I devoted to feeling forever? What's the base note? What's the basic? And fine-tuning our feelings and how we feel about us and all these things towards this common direction, especially the Serious Joy. We're working on that. And interestingly enough, the signs show this week that there is obviously about to wrap up some major issue in the sense that we're ready to wrap up the fact that Saturn is retrograding and Mercury is retrograding. So that tells us right along right there, those 2 signs, that in fact, the universe is done with us. It's up to us going forward. So this is the last week of highly guided universal divine intelligence. We'll put it that way. All right, so let's look at this week. What's the key question for this week is, what do my feelings say right now? What do my feelings say? What does my feelings say about this? What does my feelings say about that? I recommend you interview your feelings all week long. Looking at the arc of all of our growth, let's start with the planets, and let's start, of course, with the sun. The sun this week moves from step 20 to step 26. Now, 20 is the master step. 20 is the step you must maintain and get to on your own if you want to play in the game of creating reality, the game of life, really, in a weird way. Fortunately, we did some trademark searches on that. We can say that, even though Parker Brothers is pursuing it aggressively somewhere. But 2026 means that you're going to feel the space of the future, and you are feeling it. I'm feeling it. I mean, I don't know if you're trained to look for it and what it feels like, but it's there. The capacity of consciousness has expanded. I mean, I can affirm as someone who dances in this stuff. And by the end of the week, step 26, we're devoting to what we feel is best. And that's 26, which is what we feel our heart open up to, is really the formula. If your heart opens up, then that's when you devote. Now, at the same time, Jupiter is moving from 7 to 8 degrees, step 7, step 8. And that means that our learning will be to a point where we also, in the week, deciding step 8, what we believe, Jupiter, to be how we feel like on the inside. So you're navigating to a new way of feeling like you on the inside, while you're at the same time navigating to a new way life feels on the outside. Now, in the Gemini spectrum, which was very busy for a year with Jupiter and Gemini, that opened our mind to all sorts of possibilities. That was the biggest point of Jupiter, blowing our mind and letting us realize that you can never really conclude anything. And right now, Venus is in Gemini, but more importantly, Uranus has moved into Gemini. This is going to be a 7 to 8 year transit, by the way, where every year you think you know, nope. You think you know, no, nope. You think you know now, nope. When was the last time that happened? It was in World War II, 1942. And that was the same type of procedure of like nuclear bomb. Do we think we know now? Nope, 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 nope. We just push the mind and can push the problem. And we kept thinking about it from a different way, from a higher point of view. We literally grew out of our old mind. We were horse and carriage, basically. Even though we had cars, we're still thinking in those ways. Now, after World War II, there was this possibility of anything, especially through science. Well, now we're going to go through the same period of growth. And I think actually AI is the big, marker of that. But if you haven't looked and talked to that AI yet, whoa, it is compelling. So Uranus at 0 means your mind is actually more open than it's ever been. You're going to find that you have to really approach and see where your mind is resisting, because where your mind resists, it will persist and will eventually come to some sort of collision, at least if nothing else, making a fool of yourself with what you said at dinner. So Venus to 8 to 15 means that you're going to open up now to thinking differently about life altogether. So even though you're thinking a little bit differently so far from this last year, you really open up and flex those muscles. And so, if something pops in your mind this week you've never thought of before, it's significant. Then the Aries spectrum, this is building us a lot of strength and determination, where Saturn at 1 does retrograde on Sunday. Saturn has been sort of giving you the courage and the spine to love yourself, taking control of your habits, taking control of your life, and deliberately doing stuff, whereas before you never bothered to hold on and do it. And that's around self-love. Self-love is a very important thing. It's basically breathing in spirituality. If you're not self-loving, you're not breathing. You're not breathing in God consciousness. You're not breathing in creator consciousness. And so as a result, by not self-loving, you are, asthmatic. Now that Saturn is retrograde, it means that it's not going to force you anymore. You got to do it on your own. You got to remember on your own. You got to set your own reminders. And so this, in a way, sort of like gets the kids out of the class that didn't want to do the homework. And this kind of consciousness how it just scoops away people who did not do the homework, and the people who remembered stay strong. Now, Neptune at 2 degrees means similar due to retrograde. And Neptune at 2 is saying you have an incredible connection to your feelings and how you feel about yourself. And you may go, so what? Well, yourself is the creator of this reality. So if you can connect to yourself emotionally, you can now begin to feel the force. You can now begin to feel creation. You can now feel that you are connected to this reality and that this reality is responding to how you feel. So, we're just now plugging our antennas into this. But the combination of Saturn and Neptune there, bringing extreme awareness to, are you loving yourself? Do you feel yourself? That is the new reality. That is the 5D body coming into play and the we-go going online. Now, our heart's very important. Mercury will station retrograde in Leo. Mercury will reach step 14 and 15 this week. It's slowing down. That's why it's only 2 step numbers for a whole week. Usually it will do that. It'll usually do almost 3 in a day, to give you an idea of the speed. This is from Monday to Friday, 1 step. And the important part of the steps is step 14 says, I should think according to what my heart belongs. Like I should think my heart belongs there, then think about that. If my heart doesn't belong there, stop thinking about it. So it's a new management of like our mind to our heart. And then step 15 is, well, okay, if I'm going to do that, well, then what do I really want? And then that will blow the mind. So this shows us that your mind will be a little bit blown about what your heart really wants, which means you haven't been talking to it on a regular basis. So look for your mind to be blown by your own story, probably right around Thursday, Friday. Then Mars in Virgo, also pushing for reconstruction. Unfortunately, not like a war reconstruction, but Mars at 14 to 17 says, your ego is going to say, this reality, what I become, what my life has become, I'm not cool with it. I'm not cool with it anymore. And so you're seeing this systematic rejection of what is as you project and create what will be. Now the South Node, which is actually what is being destroyed right now, is step 20 and step 19 Virgo. So that means that we're letting go of the way life used to feel, which I think COVID was like an experiment to teach us that. Like, we learned like, wow, Earth will never feel the same. From what I'm looking at, from this point forward, especially with Uranus and Gemini, the Earth will never feel the same for the next 10 years or so. That's the new. We always knew, but now we know. So we're speeding up. So the way you feel about the future is gone. Let go of it. That's not what it was or was going to be. It was a feeling of future you needed to actually hear because it motivated you to go forward. And then 19 is, okay, well then we're going to have to reconstruct all this because this is not working. Now with all this going on, this major drama, let's talk about the moons real quick and our feelings as we go through things. This weekend, the moon is in Aquarius, so that's why you can take this information without any problems. And so you'll be detached and kind of, futuristic and dreamy over the weekend. Of course, we're going from 20 and 21, so we're moving up to the master level, which means we're sort of just plugging into our feelings and getting a feel for, being plugged into everything. Sunday morning, also Aquarius. But then, of course, we have on Sunday Saturn retrograde. So then the moon goes into Pisces. So with Saturn retrograde, the moon in Pisces, you could say this is the first test of the week between Sunday and late Wednesday when the moon is in Pisces, because now Saturn's not going to tell you to love yourself. And now you're going to feel all your karmic history. So you're basically getting a tour of sins and a tour of things you regret. And the trick is to not respond to that or give it any more power, and instead choose a different path, feel strong, feel like you do have faith it'll work out. And that's the reprogramming of the new future by doing that. If you fail and you go into the guilt trip or those dark alleys, you're programming the future to do that. You can see how emotionally what we feel is what will come. And so I'd say the real hardship will be Monday through Wednesday. By late Wednesday, the moon goes into Aries. So at that point, the person who is sinking, gets mad and, goes down another path, or the person who's, or decides they're going to pick themselves up and shut up and now do it. There's a real chance to change by Thursday morning where you say, okay, let's do this. We got to do this, right? And then by Friday night with the moon in Taurus, you're going to feel, okay, this is what I value. This is what I'm going to end up with. So we basically choose whether or not we can handle ourselves from Sunday night until Friday. We come back on the air. At that point, what you're, the side of you that you're voting with on the inside is the side the universe is going to put you on as far as timelines. Now the challenges, of course, Black Moon Lilith. She goes from step 11 to step 12 Scorpio, bringing up our worst nightmares and all of our fears and anything that could go wrong. But from 11 to 12 Scorpio, it means it's moving from the point of like, am I in integrity? Can I do this? Fears around that to, gosh, should I just try something new? Like that would be kind of scary. Well, something bad could happen. So fears around I'm not together or fears around trying something new will come up through the whole week. Now, Pluto, on the other hand, has retrograded back to step 2 Aquarius. This is extremely important because wherever Pluto is saying you got to guard this, means you got to guard this. Okay, now the difference is Pluto's retrograde. So Pluto's basically saying, you got to guard this, but don't ask me, you got to do it yourself. A retrograde means the planet sort of pulls back, which means the client has to dig in to get it out again, right? So you got to find your big boy shoes or whatever and protect yourself, mostly protect your feelings. Protecting your feelings means you give it the time and space to nurture it. I mean, this is your force. This is the force of who you are, your emotional passion. So you have to give it some clean, some time, some sleep, some this. Think of an actor and what they have to do to be ready for a role. That's the new reality, that we're all in this game playing this role. So Pluto says protect that, make sure it's protected. Don't let anyone else get into those feelings, and don't let yourself pick on yourself. And then lastly, the North Node, which is a good way to end this, moving on to our horoscopes. The North Node goes from 2019 also, just like the South Node, but in Pisces, 2019 is backwards. And what this means is that we're going to, as we let go of our feelings about the future, we also adopt what it ought to be. That, what would be peace? What would be tranquility? What would be something that allows me to sleep at night? That's 20 Pisces, like a real comforting, like almost like safety in a cosmic level. And then 19 says the same thing. Well, if I'm going to feel amazing and cosmic and in tune with the universe all the time, well then what do I need to do in my life? What kind of life do I have to create in order to make that happen? And so we end the week, realizing that we're on some sort of a journey and assessing whether or not we feel, assessing what we want and assessing what would be peace, and having to let go of some very strong emotional attachments to the old. So with that said, I think it's time to talk about you. So let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your soul horoscope. From the creators of 40 Days of Past Lives and Karma and 40 Days of Self-Love comes the class you've been waiting for, an introduction to Step Astrology. That's right, I'm sharing some of my inside secrets on how to read a chart according to Step Astrology and help you interpret the stars, whether it's for yourself or for clients. Keep a lookout for us coming soon. Welcome now to Soul Horoscopes, actually the part of my career that started it all back in 2006, doing 12 horoscopes a day for all 12 signs, and we call it Soul Horoscopes, which I still love that perspective of looking at a horoscope from the perspective of soul. That's what I like to look at, the pre-manifest, so we can get better at the manifest. Well, we're on a path, my friend, a big way. We're going to talk about three things that are the most important this week for all 12 signs, which are people who love to indulge in one state of awareness. And I'll talk about that today. If you don't know what state of awareness you will, I'll tell you today. I think it'll be an interesting thing to see the whole 12. But we need to focus on the sun in Cancer. What does that mean? What is this final lap? What are you devoting to this week? What do you need to feel out? Because each sign uses a different part of themselves to like learn a lesson. We'll talk about what part of yourself you're learning that lesson, where you need to, focus your gameplay, and what it means for devotion. Then Saturn retrograde in Aries, which happens again Sunday morning, as I mentioned, like 12 midnight or something after East Coast time. That means that you are on your own, kid, about taking responsibility. And when I say on your own, it means, to get off the couch, to have the energy to get off the couch. That's what it feels like. You're just like, Saturn's gone. You'd be amazed just how the energy direct makes us sit right up in our chair. So where you will tend to slouch and how to get over that. And then Mercury retrograde in Leo. This is where you'll have to think about in your heart, what does my heart really, really want? And if I'm honest, then how's my thinking been off the whole time? That's something to know. You haven't been thinking about your heart. And whatever of your life have you not been thinking about your heart in that capacity? Where have you not been thinking about your heart? And as always, we'll start with our first of the Zodiac, the Aries. Aries, you are basically building a new home and foundation. I've said it before, I'll say it here at the end. You don't come from the right home to do what you want to do. You came from a different kind of home. You need a different emotional bath every day, a different emotional feeling about yourself in your life in order to get to whatever it is you're dreaming about. So it's sort of like swapping out all the bathrooms in the house and swapping out all the comfy things and like giving yourself like posh, self-care kind of things. That's a physical way of thinking about it. But mostly it has to do with how you respond to yourself emotionally. Are you a team leader for how you feel? Are you making sure you come to the table feeling good to begin with? Do you feel good about yourself, good about your life, and good about your future? That's the real question. So it's time to navigate now and really think about how you want to feel every day when you grow up. Wake up. That was Freudian. When you do finally grow up, I'm just kidding. But you want to feel, how do you want to feel when you wake up every day? What's that going to be? What's going to make just everything turn into a better place if you do that? That's the goal you want to aim for. Now, Saturn retrograde in Aries means that you're going to lose a lot of your extra strength. You may not know it, but the universe has been giving you a lot of extra help to make decisions and get on with it. And now you have to make those decisions, especially in being loving to the way you respond to yourself. The way you respond to yourself cannot be brutal. It doesn't matter that you're tough. It doesn't matter that you're strong. You cannot respond to yourself the way you normally do. You want to bring in some love and some care and some, above and beyond creativity. And every time you respond to yourself, you do that, you just make that a policy, and you're going to find yourself stronger than ever. The Mercury retrograde in Leo, though, means something else. It means that your heart and your mind have not been honest with each other about what you really, really want. Your heart and your mind have been, you tell me, doing other things. So once Saturn retrogrades, I believe and I predict that Aries are going to say, man, my heart really wants this. And it's like, okay, what are you going to do about it? And we're at a real stage of what are you going to do about it? Because I didn't say this in the show, maybe I wasn't meant to, but it's like, this is it. This is the final sailing. People need to get on the ball and follow what their heart wants now. Or honestly, we're out of time. The world's going to change too fast, probably right off to next lifetime. That's just the way it's going to be. You'll see with the world changing so fast, we have to know what we want now. So meditate on over the weekend and come back, ready to find out what that is. All right. On to our bulls. Taurus, yay. I have seen this myself. We are looking at how our attitude colors our thinking. All right. So Tauruses show up to the table. If you know how it is, you feel good, you feel fed, right? You got all your fetishes taken care of, everything your mind wanted, you could potentially desire. You've given all that to yourself, and now it's like, what to think about. And the question is, if you show up bubbled and full and feeling valuable and valuing yourself and feeling valued by yourself, then your thoughts are brilliant. If you don't feel good, then your thoughts steer south, okay? And your whole life becomes preventing things instead of manifesting and creating things. You are the big fertile bull. That means prosperity in every culture going back on earth. And that's because you are the one that gives the most for the low buck. And so now it's time to get an attitude for success. So you want to choose a devotion to an attitude, an emotional attitude that becomes your default every day. And if you don't feel that attitude, don't leave the house. You have to be this way if you want to succeed. This is a point where, because your mind is so connected to every feeling everywhere, it cannot be distracted. You need to use it as a tool to get what you want in life and to feel out your resources and feel out everything is this full. So it's kind of like you're going through a mind emotional wash and you're devoting to the attitude you want to live by going forward. Very powerful, because I think you'll be stuck on the wrong team if you're not, positive at that time that you choose that person. Now, the Saturn retrograde means that, unfortunately, you've been having a lot of strong faith. Not unfortunately, your faith in yourself has been propped up by Saturn. So you've been able to say, no, this is how it is, which I think a Taurus can do anyways. But, it's around things you're scared about secretly. It's about things that you worry about, So around things you worry about, you've been pretty strong, and you've had sort of a, set up straight in your bullpen. But now Saturn retrograding means you've got to remember that you choose love or fear, love or fear, love or fear, love or worry, love or worry. Either you believe that love will change it all, or you don't believe that love will change it all. Get off the, shit or get off the pot. You have to come to that conclusion, and then you have to live by it now with Saturn retrograde. And now that you stand by that side, you're going to find a lot of things change as you look at where your projection is in the world. In fact, you were projecting wrong because you weren't taking that stance. Now, Mercury in Leo retrograde does mean something interesting. It means for you, it's time to rethink the way you live day to day and how you feel day to day. How you feel is not loving enough. You don't feel loved enough, okay? And many Tauruses spend a long time looking outside themselves for that love, but you can't make that butter. You can't have Mrs. Cow or Mr. Cow if you don't love yourself and look fertile and look rich in the first place. Feel rich. That's richer cream's going to come out of there. So ultimately, it's time to decide about what your heart needs to feel secure. What does your heart need from your family, from your home? You are living in a home or living in a pasture that doesn't necessarily give you enough love. And so as a result, your output and your potential is weakened. So that's what you need to know. Gemini, you are in a place this week where you're realizing, or maybe not, maybe I'm telling you for the first time, that a brilliant idea is only part of the issue. Having a brilliant idea is a great idea, but an idea stays up in that space of idea unless you use the other parts of you to make it happen. Now, you may have realized that it's your feelings that are very important. Your feelings and how you feel at the moment either makes an idea good or worthless. And as a result, your salary, your ability to make money, if you're feeling bad, you're not going to make money, you're not going to feel valuable, you're not going to feel worth investing in. And so because you're putting off that feeling you're not worthy, we agree. Especially because we want to be in this office and be happy. So you're realizing that it's time to devote to a feeling that inspires and brings the best out of you, that makes you feel amazing and fertile, and makes you feel really, valued, like you're worth, that you're going to sit there and make yourself feel rich even though you aren't rich. And so if you feel rich even though you aren't rich, you'll be rich. That's kind of what it's saying. Now, Saturn retrograde in Aries does mean that you are no longer super ambitious or, let's say, taking lead in your social life right now. You don't quite know all of a sudden that if you do fit in or don't fit in. For a while, you're feeling pretty confident there, like you do fit in. Now you don't feel so much. That's because Saturn is retrograded. And that means that you no longer have, the universe is like, holding you up at that posture. You are to remember and commit to go back to that same feeling. So to put it very simple, if you thought you were hot shit and felt that way for a while, and now you don't, what you have to do is go back and find that feeling and then put it on like a coat. So if you wear that feeling of feeling awesome, even though you don't, you'll watch before your eyes. Things shift in front of you. Now, lastly, the Mercury retrograde, that's a big deal. That's a retrograde in your sign with your planet. It does mean that if you're dominant logic, you become dominant intuitive. If you're dominant intuitive, you become dominant logic as a Gemini. So you're literally being forced to see your world through the side of the brain you use the least, right? But that helps you to correct steer. The question will be really in your heart, in your case with your heart, is really the way your mindset is. If your mind sets out to be unlucky or to feel unlucky, or your mind sets out to prove this or prove that, or to think, if you set out to create with your creative mind, create a world where the world's against you, well, then it will be. And so I think you're learning that you are a magical poet in the sense that what you write in your mind is what becomes your life. That's why you're so cool as a Gemini. But you have to realize if you come from a place of despair or lack of self-love or lack of appreciation for yourself, then the writer's going to be writing some simple stuff that no one wants to read. So putting the heart into what you think is the key. All right. Cancers! Happy birthday, Cancer. You're getting a hell of a birthday present this year. You are actually deciding and feeling what the character you'll be known for. And I do believe, honestly, no matter what your age is, this is the character you'll be known for. Where it's such a major era change that, if you're like 12 right now, this is the character you'll be known for. If you're 96, doesn't matter if you got to 96, 95, 96 is not what you'll be known for 96. So hard to believe, but it's true with the planets. It means that ultimately you want to base how you are as a character on how you want to feel as a character, not being able to handle, the other part of Cancer is, well, I'll just take care of everyone around me and then I'll feel good about myself. It's no, you feel good about yourself first and then different people are around you. that the people that are around you will be different when you feel good by yourself. If you rely on your talents to, if you rely on your talents to be the part that controls, is controlling you by you just always doing your talent and not choosing how you want to feel, then you will not really be ever in course of choosing your destiny. You are an emotional magnet. When you feel something, everyone reacts. And so I guess you're switching from reacting to others to responding to yourself. That's the big shift, really. Now, when it comes to Saturn retrograde in Aries, well, you are going to be, first of all, you've been very strong energetically about moving forward, taking leadership in your life, getting yourself out of whatever ruts you have, and hopefully loving yourself in a good way. Now that Saturn retrogrades, you'll feel less of the strength, less of the courage, less of the determination and insistence. And so you'll, be reluctant to do the most loving thing. As long as you make decisions that are the most loving for yourself, you can't fail. As long as you make decisions that are most loving for yourself. So you shouldn't even consider others. They shouldn't even be in consideration ever when you're making a decision for yourself. That's honestly how it's done. So you'll be better at helping others when you actually take that perspective. Because you'll be in front of people you can actually help, not people who just want you to take care of them. So that's a big one. Stand tall, make decisions with your heart. Mercury retrograde, though, says that when it comes to your abundance, your ability to make a lot of money, or produce when you want to, or, even if it's like getting every grandkid a present this year, right? I mean, that could be what you're doing. That's where your money's going. It's saying that you're just not loving it with yourself, so you don't really feel very loved. So you don't really feel like you feel like you have a cap on how much you can earn because you don't really feel you're that worthy because you don't feel you're loved enough. And a lot of times Cancer is based on loved by others enough. In this case, no, it's completely about how you love yourself or not. And so you're going to rethink that now. If you really want to be happy, you got to love yourself first before you start spending that money. All right. And to Leos. Hello, Leos and Leo risings. This is interesting. I'm having this moment myself. As I look at it and go, oh, that's true. Ultimately, you are changing your devotion to the universe. I was like, what? Yes, you're changing your vows to the universe. That's ultimately what it is. And it comes from an emotion that you find yourself feeling and floating towards. Now, when it comes to, Leos, they are people who always went with how they felt. And when it feels right, it's also true. It is right. Because your feelings are in the house of God consciousness, your feelings are in the house of spirit. So for you, emotions come through your spirit. And so you pretty much know if it's come from spirit, it's going to guide you in the right direction. And it will. The problem has been it's been littered with fear, pain, and body issues and denial issues, things you didn't know about spirit. And so it's been a crazy way. But, up until now, I would think most Leos have gone with what they were told as far as the universe works. And this is probably the first time where Leos are actually taking that king, queen of the jungle power and actually spending it on their own definition of what universe is and their own definition of what to listen to inside yourself. So what values, what morals, what code, what's your life purpose in the sense of spiritual mission? What is your spiritual mission? Is it sharpened? In some ways, for me, it has sharpened, but also my relationship to the other side has changed dramatically. Almost shocking in some ways if you know what it is. But the point is, you must feel different about who are the angels? What's the universe? What's your role in the universe? What's your mission? And really feel, what feels right, what feels like your calling, what feels the best to you is the right way. So you're finding your way to God in some ways, but God's being redefined in itself. Now that said, the Saturn retrograde means that you've been really boosted with a lot of confidence and energy to stand tall and be responsible with choosing based on your heart for the last few weeks. So you've been, had a stronger heartfelt voice for a long time. Basically, your lawyer has been hanging out with your inner child. So that inner child has been feeling pretty powerful with the lawyer next to it. And so the inner child has been pretty much calling things like it wants. Saturn retrogrades now, which means the lawyer goes away. And that means that now you told everyone what better happen. You got no one over your shoulder guarding you and telling you that, and so it is. So this is where you have to stick up for your inner child with Saturn retrograde and stick up on your own and just make it a policy to stick on your own because you're learning how to remember and include your inner child with every decision. That's part of the lesson here. And as far as Mercury retrograde, well, that's also interesting in the sense that it's in your sign. It's at 15 degrees. And I think you're going to find that something about your interaction with people is not quite working. And who knows where you're going with it. But the answer of it is the way your mind thinks of you, the way your mind judges you, the way your mind thinks of you, whether your mind is thinking of you based on your mind or the mind of you is thinking based on your heart. The thing is, when you think from the heart, when you ask your heart what to say, your heart what to do, your heart what to be in that moment, it's not going to be what your mind's been doing. And you're going to realize that you have not been following your heart, you've been following your mind. And so that retrograde holy shift will be what you're doing for 3 weeks. It's rethinking life based on that. Interesting. Virgos. Virgo, you are in a place now where you are reassessing where you belong in the public. And again, like the Leos, it's a big shift because you're no longer codependent about that. You have confidence now. You fixed up a lot of your relationships now. Your relationships are working that you care about. So now you can kind of get things working for you when it comes to relationships. The question is, who the am I in society? And you base it basically on an emotional need. Oh, they need me. They need me. They need me. Now it's flipping to like, well, what feels good? What do you like? What do you feel good? I mean, everybody needs you. You're Virgo. Everyone could use their house being cleaned or organized. Everyone can. It's endless. Everyone's lazy. They'll totally take it for a second. So that said, well, what do you want to work around? What do you want to feel? How do you want to feel every day at work? That's a real question. And ask your feelings. Does that feel right? Does that feel right? But not at work so much in the world. When you go out to the PTA group with your other ladies or other men who are there for PTA, how do you want to feel in that environment? How do you want to feel when you're in an actual job during the day? How do you want to feel when you're in front of your doctor? Like, what are your environments that you feel good in? Where's your home? So I think you're figuring out where you belong, but you're thinking about actually considering your feelings instead of the public. That's the thing that's so weird and inside out. Now, Saturn retrograde means that universe has made you very strong when it comes to your overall be able to draw boundaries, your ability to be trust yourself, your ability to follow through with your self-trust issues. But now that Saturn is moving backwards in Aries and back into Pisces, it means you're going to reconsider what is that your heart really loves and whether or not you can stick up for it. So I think you've had the strength to draw the boundaries now, but you won't have the strength behind you with Saturn retrograde, which really makes you ask, okay, did I really want that in the first place, says the Virgo? And then will I stand up and be there for myself strong like I felt in the last few weeks? So basically you're going to lose kind of your strength in drawing boundaries with yourself and find yourself maybe back in the fridge kind of thing, or whatever that is you're having a hard time resisting. Now that said, Mercury retrograde is a little bit of a different story because it has to do with your faith, okay? Your faith. You have actually, Leo in the 12th house. So your heart is with God. You're more godlike than anyone. Of course, you're the embodiment of spirit, 6th house. And so with Mercury retrograde, the question is, am I happy with myself? I think you've been ultimately just worried about God's opinion. But God, universe, from what I understand, wants to know your opinion. That's the whole point of having you. It's a kid. God already had his opinion. He knew. He created the universe, or she created the universe. The real question is, what do you want, little one? And what do you believe in your heart is true? And so I think it's a totally new love revolution with Virgos, because they've finally put on enough of the fires going on in their daily life, and now they really want to know where they sit with God and how that's going to change. And the answer is what your heart wants. All right. Libras. Libra, you are now feeling out where you want your legacy to go. And this is similar to the last two. I'm just realizing, Virgos and Leos both. You have basically been trying to fix feelings in your work. Show up to a broken work and help everyone feel better and help be this for that person, that basically sacrificing yourself for your decisions and happy that you were on the right path, but never feeling good yourself because you weren't getting the kind of attention you were given. And so the realization here is like, no. You pick what feels good in the first place, and be very judgy about that and very judgy about how you want things to feel, and then maybe help people because you're already in the right place and they're your people. I don't think you've been around your people your whole lifetime, honestly. You just haven't been prepared enough with all the other planets. So I think we've never even seen the real Libra yet on planet Earth for a long time, just because of the way you're kind of carried by that dismissive and also abusive energy of, divine feminine. Divine feminine is so squashed for so long. You are the sign of divine feminine. You just haven't been able to thrive. This is different now. By aiming for what you feel good and what you want to do, the world's your oyster, so to speak. So you really got to commit to how you want to feel and not what's going on. Get your mind out of it. You're not as air sign as you think. Now, that said, Saturn retrograde in Aries does mean that you've had a lot of strength with Saturn in that space for you to get up, get off the couch, get off your phone, get off of whatever, and plug into you. Like, damn it, you're so good with others. Well, prove it. Be good to you. And so Saturn kind of kicked your ass saying, you got to be good to you. You can't say you're going around like a relationship expert when you don't get along with yourself. That's just crazy. So you got real strong with that with Saturn direct, but now that Saturn's retrograde, you got to remember to do what's loving for you, period, and then see who comes. Do what's loving for you, and then see who comes, all right? This affects your whole marriage and partnership spectrum, but we're at the very core of it, which is how you treat you, which is what determines a partner. Now, that said, Mercury retrograde is going to be interesting in the sense that, first of all, Mercury is in the sign of love. And for you, what is love? You have a love affair with the public, believe it or not. You love the public, all right? You love being out there. You love being the judge. You love being the artist. You love being you really do. And the thing is, you love doing all that, but you are weirdly wired to worry about them, not you. So you were wired, basically, you think, society wired you to think about, them, not you. But what's changing is the Mercury retrograde says, no, it's about you. Because where you love the most is where you belong. And so you haven't been choosing your world and your place in the world based on what you love the most. maybe what you love about yourself the most, but not really what you love, what you want. So I think this is the breaking point. Libras are going to leave where they are, disconnect from where they are, and probably choose another like goal in society, the one they actually love. I hope. I pray for you.
It's in the stars to seriously change your life with a subscription to Serious Joy. Sign up now for your personalized step astrology and daily pep talks. Highly predictive astrology sent via text and email. Daily Zodiac weather reports. Advanced lectures, classes, edutainment series, and more. Sign up today for only $3.99 to seriously change your life. Only on SeriousJoy.com.
Now the Scorpios. Scorpio, you are now changing how life purpose comes to be. I say up until now, Scorpios have been kind of wandering in the desert, not really knowing where they're meant to be. Every Scorpio I know, and it's crazy because you guys are so sharp and intelligent, and I always wonder, why do they not know what they want to do or who they are, or what their purpose is? And the reason is because your emotions have been littered with stuff like anger and pain and all sorts of stuff you've gone through yourself and all the wounds you've taken in and all that stuff. You've been so wounded, you can't read your emotional field to see where you're supposed to be and use your feelings. I think the other thing too is Scorpios have not necessarily used their feelings to determine moment to moment. Because, I think you're always surrounded by people with either cold or crazy. So, for you, feelings is something that you deal with privately with scotch. Now, that said, now you've learned to step into your emotions, I feel. And with Jupiter and Gemini, you've also been able to like mentally arrange to make sure things are safe to begin with. And if now things are safe to begin with, it's time to proceed. And so by the end of the week, I think you'll feel that your heart can open up to a direction. Expect not a literal version of it, expect the feeling of it and the feeling of how you want to feel while you're there and how you want to feel in the job and how you want to feel after the day's end. When you triangulate that, then you just say yes, basically, to it and commit to it with your heart. Give it a try. See how it works. You're very powerful because you have the planet energy of 0. So when you put out something like that, a light cast like that, everyone hears it and shudders. Just kidding. Now, that said, Saturn going retrograde means that when it comes to yourself and how you live in the moment, okay, how you live in your body, how you live in everything, the universe has made you really strong lately in the sense of helping you feel a bit stronger about getting up, going to work, doing the things. You've been given an energy boost. That was after, had been in the house of personal dreams. So you got so caught up in love and have you been loved and healing love stuff that you weren't really thinking about what the next step is. Saturn helped you say, okay, it's time to step up, time to do this, time to do that. You'll find that motivation is just not there with Saturn retrograde. So you've got to be programming into your life to monitor your heart and to monitor what you love most as far as feeling good and really set out to feel good in the given day. If you don't take that, instead of being wounded or being taken advantage of, if you don't take instead the defensive position or the regret position or the anger position, which is what you've been taking a lot in life because you're pissed that you've ended up in this spot. The truth is, yes, you have, but it's time to take it for yourself. But Saturn can't be with you forever. You got to learn how to step up and live for your heart right now. So that's the retrograde. You got to be there for your heart. No one else is going to do it, and no one's going to remind you. Now, Mercury retrograde is a little different thing, but also very similar at the same time. This has to do with where you end up in the world. Okay, where you can end up in the world. Okay, I have a purpose. Will I actually get it? Is the next question. Yes, if your heart's in love with it, you will. That's the thing. Again, Scorpio's got this really harsh militaristic background, and I think your heart stopped dreaming. Life sucked every day. You just add it all together. And so now you really are in a position to go after what your heart wants. So be honest with yourself. I know you can do that. Sagittarius. Saggies, you are in a place of real transformation where you might suddenly either feel different about something already. So your soul might be wise in understanding your feelings. And if you're wise in your feelings, then you know exactly what you have to do. And I'm here to tell you, go for it, follow what you're feeling. For others, you may have to be sort of tricked into it, of letting go of certain things or not having your, what you want as your vice or what you want as your codependent. And so suddenly you're just left alone in your emotions. And hopefully you'll learn to swim at that point because you're being pushed in the pool if that's the case. And what you do is you swim towards where you feel you should swim. So if you feel you should go that way, swim that way. And that's all you get, swim that way. Now, you're an adventurer anyways. There shouldn't be a problem with this as long as you have the good skills to nurture your feelings. And that's important. And that's actually what Saturn's been helping you with. Let's up to Saturn. With Saturn retrograde at 1 now, this means that you must take responsibility 100% for your inner child. So you could say that you become the mother or the father of your life now. You've stepped in. You have to play their role and yours. And by playing their role, you need to give yourself the thinking for your heart, what's best for you and what would make your life so much more loving. You've got to think about what will be best for your life, for that kid to have a loving, amazing life. What kind of response do you need to give that kid? You have to step in and actually play that role now. You have to play that role now. If you go ahead and become the mother you wish you had, become the father you wish you had to yourself, your heart will then want to keep opening. And from there, you can explore the next thing, which is serious joy. I mean, not the next, but it's coming around the corner. Now, with that said, Saturn retrograde at 1 degree means really this is about your life in your heart. So the ability to stay and change and go with your feelings and how you feel good allows you to feel safe, allows you to feel cared for by the parent you always wanted. And this allows you then to champion your life purpose. So so now that Saturn's not pulling away, Saturn's not going to encourage your heart to go for it. You've had someone right there with you sort of energetically saying, go for it, try it, see what happens. Sort of taunting probably and daring your inner child. And you should have jumped, but don't worry, you're going to. Now with Saturn retrograde, it's like, okay, now you be that coach on the side. Again, just like the self-parenting. And then, of course, Saturn goes into Pisces where you literally create a new emotional home. Now, the last thing we want to talk about, of course, is the retrograde of Mercury in the Leo consciousness. This retrograde is a biggie because you've been sort of after some sort of life purpose, whether you knew it or not. And most of life purposes, you fall in love with knowledge. You love knowledge. You love culture. You love, all the things fun about being human. You're a human's human. If humans decide to have official tour agents, they all be Sagittarius. You want to give the tour of humanity. That's who you are. That's what your interest in consciousness is. But I think right now you're falling out of love with the old studies and your heart is craving a new topic. And so it's time to really go after what your heart really wants to explore. It's probably taboo. It's probably weird out there. You probably don't want to bring it up at lunch with the girls, but you got to be honest with yourself, come out of the closet, because that retrograde is about changing the way you basically changing your curiosity. That's a good one. Capricorns, Cappies. Oh, and I've already talked to a couple Capricorn friends who've come in on Mayday calls. This is about your marriage and partnerships. It's interesting, Capricorns, I try to get this through to you guys when I talk to you, but you just don't get it yet, which is that you, believe it or not, you're super ambitious and you're super into the goal. And as a result, the only way to be that super is to ignore some part of yourself. You can't have some part of yourself has got to give up the attention if you're going to give it all to something like success. And what you've given up is your emotions. You have not learned to craft them. You really rely too much on being cared for and nurtured by the partner. And the partner, in every case, is done. So you're in a place now where you have to show up to the table emotionally prepared to basically bounce back and forth with emotions as much as they do with you, and to hold space and not be emotionally reciprocated at that time because it's a long-term investment. Put in terms, so you're changing the way you feel about relationships, and you're changing where you think relationships have to go, which is going to mean changing the way you manage your feelings. By the way, it's always going to happen. But by the end of the week, you're going to be devoting to what devotion is. What is devotion? What is marriage? What are you aiming for? What's that final model of a partnership that'll make you feel the best by both partners showing up just as they are and it working then? It has to work just as it is. Right? Shouldn't take any, no fixer-uppers anymore. You're the one that need to be fixed up. Now, Saturn retrograde means that you now lose your own ruling planet in a space that, for you energetically is important. And it speaks to, what I was talking about just here a minute ago, your emotional foundation. Saturn's been propping you up kind of like a mom would, but from a male kind of tough perspective, since Saturn went to Aries. So you've been unusually strong with your feelings, unusually as far as how things usually are. And before it was always like win the war, lose the war. Emotions are very black and white for you and sometimes aggressive and come out really fast and then they're gone all of a sudden, kind of a poof of fire. Anyways, that approach is like the old ego. It's the old way of thinking, the old way of doing. And so your way of nurturing yourself has got to be nurtured and changed right now. So I'm going to step up with a new self-nurturing plan and to be strong for yourself and be that tough mama. So it's really kind of interesting how both are affecting both at the same time. The last thing is the Mercury retrograde in Leo. Now, this is even more intense because you're going to realize that you have a capacity for love so much greater now that you're caring for yourself. You're going to just feel like, the hills are alive, like an old 50s Disney film, or 60s. And that's because you're conservative. But that said, you're going to realize that you could actually, if you really loved everything you chose and really, stepped away from things you don't love, your life is going to change dramatically because you investing in things you don't love is actually draining your resources and you don't realize it. Why are you doing it? Because you think it's a good long-term investment. But if your heart's not enjoying the ride, you're on the wrong path. All right. Aquarius. Aquariuses are now in a transformation of lifestyle. And I feel like what they're realizing is that you control the force through your feelings. That's what they're realizing. And see, this is huge. This is the Aquariuses coming online because Aquariuses have always been distant. They're afraid to connect. That fear to connect is the emotion. They have to use the field of emotion in order to make that motion happen. And so, it's a little too much overwhelming for you Aquariuses a lot of times. And so you weren't willing to get in the pool until Pluto showed up. And interestingly enough, this is one of the first time, this is my adult witness to Pluto in Aquarius. I've never seen a species like sit straight up so fast in my life. As far as a reverse 180, as far as their approach to everything, you guys really just stepped into the ability to open up your heart, chase after your dreams. I'm seeing all of them. I'm like, shit, who would have thought? Like to bring an old astrologer up to now and like, do you believe this stuff? I got Aquarius? But that's what they're becoming. It's kind of fun. I work closely with many of them. So it means that your lifestyle has to be designed to keep you floating. You have to, like a princess, I'll say no matter who you are, male or female, like a princess, there's only one way to look at this. Like a princess, need it all your way emotionally, need it all your way to feel comfortable, and just do what you need to do. Think of yourself as unique, what comes with unique needs and unique, handicaps, or not even handicaps, necessities. So yeah, this is the green M&Ms in the green room only, and anyone else you're going off the stage. Yeah, it kind of is that way. You don't have to be an asshole about it, but yeah. So that said, you want to maximize how you feel, and once you maximize how you feel and you realize you've got to show up nurture in the first place, then you'll be like, oh, okay, let's go here. Because you're going to realize that you were aiming for a lifestyle that still was not addressing it at the level it needed to. Now, Saturn retrograde means that you are going to energetically, right? So it's going to be very energy for you. For you, there's a shift in the direction that you might want to go, for one. For the other, it has to do with your ability to, in your heart, know what to do and what you believe in yourself, what you love the most yourself. You're getting extra help with Saturn at 1 degree Aries to go ahead and love yourself automatically. And where's this happening? In your mind. So your mind's been having this boost of thinking confidently. Or maybe your mind's been suddenly strong enough to take the happy route instead of falling into the sad route. And so this means that if you don't make it law inside of you that you have to always think for your inner child when you think, then I think you're going to be in trouble, because this is brand new space of energy with Aries, and this is where you are cocky by nature, and ironically, you've been doing it to protect yourself, and now it's in the way. So that said, then Mercury, which is 15 degrees Leo down to 4 degrees Leo, means that during the process of the retrograde that starts at the end of this week, you're going to actually look at love differently now, completely differently. And, you thought feeling it strongly in the first place was cool. You're going to realize you're approaching it completely incorrectly. And I don't know what that means specifically, but I know and sense in my intuition that the retrograde for you is like realizing that either you want love on a greater level now and to experience it more now, and so what am I not doing? Or you're experiencing now and you realize, oh my God, I've been still holding myself back. So it doesn't matter where you are in the scale. The universe is saying, hey, with expanding yourself with Pluto and Aquarius, the Leo side has got to also expand. And so your heart is getting bigger, I could say, for relationships. So rethink all of that, and I think we'll be in a good place. All right. Pisces. I like saying that out loud. It's a better one. And the Pisces. You see, I changed it for you. It's now exciting Pisces. Personal dreams and serious joy is the actual thing here. You use feelings to get to your joy. Problem is, you kept stopping at dark side, emotional pain, pit stops, or you stay in it too long. You emotionally do not have the skill set, really, with being Gemini in the 4th house. You try to think your way out of feelings, and society is so nitwit anyways about its knowledge of feelings that I just don't see how Pisces could have done a good job nurturing themselves given where we are in this time and this era. But now you can. Okay, Jupiter just went through the space, expanded it, gave you much more resolution for how you can think. And so now it's really time for you to make yourself happy, This is a choice, by the way, for Pisces. You have to swim towards it like a fishy in current. And if you don't swim, it won't go. You have to emotionally get that tank on a whole new level. So it's like, oh, I'm in this crappy tank. You got to change the water. You got to filter it. So this means that you are emotionally looking for the good. You're emotionally nurturing the parts that are pain. You take responsibility for your feelings, and then your hearts and your dreams start to open up. So you're basically do some nurturing and then ask your heart, what do you really want? What is your biggest wish on the planet? Because I'm learning that usually the biggest wish is the one that you're supposed to aim for. And you go, why do you just don't wish to win the lottery. That's not the way it's going to work. You wish for something and you'll be awarded in other places. Now, Saturn at 1 degree, moving out of Aries, means that at the same time, you've had a lot of self-confidence that you didn't really pull together. You suddenly have been thinking about, yeah, I am worth it, damn it. Some sort of a strong kind of like, I deserve a promotion. I deserve to move up. I'm capable of that. I'm capable of that. Now, that strength will not be there once Saturn is retrograde over Sunday. That means that you're not feeling as inspired to command and demand and control. And so that's the feeling where you go, okay, I love myself. I'm holding this in. I'm stepping up here. I'm going to follow the role model I made for myself during the direct. Now, Mercury in Leo, another story, but also extremely important because Leo is where your power is, my friend. And you have not been turning on your Leo at all. I very rarely have seen a Pisces sparkle like I remember they used to sparkle. Not kidding. I have enough years on the planet to go, yeah, I can tell things have changed. And what's happened is you've just, had to face your karma. So you face your dark side and all the scum in the bottom of the aquarium. And so now after all this, it may feel like you can't turn the light on, but that's not true. In fact, that's the end of your story. If we don't see you turn the light on, we won't believe you've changed. We need to see you light up. And so that means you have to actually live a life of love in yourself and not care about anything but loving yourself. Because the problems you came to decode and the karma you came to heal, yes, that was important to clean the record. Now it's time to be what you're originally designed as, the bright, the Christ, the anything that people want to see as they want to project their beliefs onto you. It doesn't matter. You hold the light, you walk the light, you are a light walker. So it's time to. And so think about that. If you're not loving every part of your life, what needs to change? Let your inner child choose all your favorites, as if you won the lottery. And basically what you're doing is you're setting us up. So people who want to win the lottery, you've got to win the lottery inside yourself before you win the lottery. So I think it'll be very interesting to see the dream weavers weave. And that wraps us up, friends. How are we in time? That was perfect. Amazing. Proud of myself. Just remember, we are currently offering a solution to your problems, whatever they are. It's the step system, which was given to me by my higher self and some angels hanging around there in that room. And what it is that we have this new class now, and I'm finally for the first time. I've never laid it out like this thoroughly. I've never put it into print. I've always kept it because I was careful not to release it at the wrong time. Humanity needs it now. And there's things in here I haven't ever talked about. It's going to be fun. And it's going to be exciting because it's happening in the sign of Leo that we start the course. So your inner child will be engaged. And so if you're ready to create, take creative control of your reality, and you want something better, sign up for this class. Be galactically aligned with Leo, and let's do this. It's going to be fun. I'm live teaching these, by the way, the only time I'll live teach it. So everyone out from this point will be watching the time you were there. For more information, go to seriousjoy.academy. Look forward to see you guys in class. And I look forward to seeing everyone else next week. It's going to be interesting. When the sun goes into Leo with Mercury retrograde, that's also interesting. No matter what, where your awareness is, you're onto a new path you've never lived before. And we'll do our best to walk by your side. I'll see you next week. I love you. Live, love, be.
Coming up next week on Serious Joy TV, join Sensei Christopher and co-host Psychic Medium Scott Cruz live on Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Then tune in to ASTROMINGLE for a mega astro conversation with guest Natha Perkins of Electra Astrology. The best in enlightened entertainment only on Serious Joy TV.